Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton and this is a podcast about the future of marketing. Every week or so I interview someone who is impressive, insightful, important, entertaining, or all of those things. And this week is no different. I'm sat here with Fiona Spooner, who is a global marketing director at the Financial Times. And I promised Fiona that I'm not going to stop at any point, so I'm going to have to leave that mistake in. Fiona, thank you so much for inviting me down to your lovely new office in the heart of London's financial district.
Thanks for coming.
It's a very rainy day here in London, and it's the first day of winter, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't make the most of the view, does it?
No, and everyone feels that the winter started and summer's over. But despite that, I'm really excited to be here, so thank you so much. So, the Financial Times, I would have thought that almost everyone listening to this podcast would be very familiar with the title, but can you let the audience know a bit more about who you are and what you do?
Mm-hmm. Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming in. I'm Global Marketing Director for the consumer subscription side of the business. So my team is responsible for driving subscriptions to the FT, be it on for the newspaper, for the website. And that's every point of the journey from acquisition, our awareness campaigns, through to conversion, payment optimization, engagement, retention of those customers, consumer customers.
And there's been a massive change at the Financial Times in the last week or so.
Yeah, we've just been launched our new brand positioning, a new campaign called the New Agenda. It's a global campaign, the first one we've done really for a long time, and talks about the FT and what we believe in, and that we believe there's time for a reset around capitalism and businesses being held to account. We've been working really closely with editorial on it. We're really excited about it, and it's been well received so far.
Oh, congratulations on that. We may well come back to that at some point, but it's customary on this podcast to get to know you a bit better.
Okay.
So everyone gets the same questions. Actually, that's a lie. Everyone gets the choice of the same questions, but people choose different ones. And I'm very interested by your choices. So the first one, personal question, is what is the most useful thing that you've bought for work with your own money?
With my own money.
You can't cheat and
yes.
say you expensed it. Like, you've actually shelled out your hard-earned for this.
Okay. Well, actually, I was thinking, so tech-wise, I've been fortunate to work for a company that's really believed in that. So anything that's related to any sort of job, the company has always funded, be it from smartwatches to iPads to everything else around the business, because they've believed that as a business, if we want to be digital and we want to be understand our consumers, then they invest in it. So actually, I had to think about this for a long time. But the thing that I spend money on that's really valuable for my work is all of the subscriptions that I buy.
Right, tell me about those.
So I have, like everyone does, Ocado, Amazon Prime, the gym, magazines, HelloFresh, those sorts of things. And managing a subscriptions business, I get a lot of inspiration from what other businesses do and how they treat their subscribers. It prompts me for, when I've got payment failure messages, to look at our own. It kind of gives me those prompts and say, what's everyone else doing? What's the subscription industry doing? How can we be better as a customer? How do I want to be spoken to? What are the things that are important to me? What are the things that I don't like? So that we can kind of learn from other industries on how to, manage a subscriptions business more effectively.
And of course, we met on stage.
Yeah.
Embarrassing. At a subscriptions event.
Yeah.
That was so strange for me, that event, because what was the name of the guy that set up? Mark.
Van Akers, yeah.
Yeah, he's really, really lovely guy. And he's like, "Will you come down to the Gherkin and record this podcast?" I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
It's
always
nice to be asked, not dropping any hints there. And it transpired that it was on the top of the Gherkin in London,
on
which
a really
on a
hot day.
And for anyone listening who hasn't been there, it's just like it's glass. It's like a glass dome, and it's literally incredible experience, wasn't it? And there was about 200 people there. I was slightly unprepared for that, but thanks for making me look good on that occasion. So, which of those subscriptions companies would you say do subscriptions really well? I mean, I don't mean necessarily the product, but the experience of a subscription. And who do you think's falling over? You mentioned a really broad range there, of the gym to food to HelloFresh to Amazon Prime, which is content. Who do you think's managing the subscription experience really well?
I think a lot of the new startups do it quite well, but actually at the moment we've been talking a lot in our team about Ocado, because they seem to use every touch point, even down to the drivers that actually deliver your shopping and their personalisation. I think they just seem to be using the whole experience, not just, and it feels a bit holistic, and that they care about. They actually care. I think that's how it feels.
Do you think they care, or do you think they've made it feel like they care? No, I don't think they care.
I think they've made it feel like they care. I think they've done that very well. I'd like to think that they really care. But I think the consistency they have, and from customer services to your delivery to the on-site experience to the app, I think that's probably what we aspire to, is to have that kind of consistency. And sometimes when you've got, for us, like delivery distributors that are out of your control, it's hard to have that holistic experience as on brand as we would like it some days. And when you're a premium brand, that's really important. So I think that's something that they do quite well.
And who do you think's not doing it well? Who's like bad at subscription management? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I think actually still some of the publishing industry, and that's why we look to external and different industries, because inherently we've used legacy systems. I think that's a real challenge for publishers in the subs industry, still having old print customers on different systems and digital ones, and treating them the same. I think that's what some other publishers have struggled with, and we do sometimes too.
So that's a great bit of advice, to really pay your own money to understand what they're... I'm sure you could expend some of those things.
I don't think that would be signed off.
I would definitely
Netflix
have a punt at that. That probably says more about me. So that's a great bit of advice. So could you tell me about something or a specific occasion in your career where things have gone really wrong, a spectacular misstep that you're really glad happened, that
which one? Yes. I think my biggest work fuck up totally has to be the first one I did, which was, and I'm going to give my age away now, back, it must have been about 2001, 2002. I was a marketing assistant, my first job, and it was for a publication called New Media Age. Do you remember New Media Age? It was owned by Centaur.
Yeah,
so I was working on...
Justin.
Yeah.
Yes,
Justin Pearce was a journalist on it at the time. So we were experimenting with this exciting world of email marketing, and I had a genius moment. We were launching New Media Creative. I had a genius idea that actually, why don't I just email all the New Media Age subscribers with an offer to New Media Creative? So I blind copied thousands of emails into my email and sent it to them back in the days before GDPR and any sort of email platform.
Right, okay. What,
through my outlet.
CC, right.
Mm-hmm. And
so you just gave away the database?
No, it was in blind. It was blind copied,
okay,
but it basically crashed the entire company's entire email system. And this was a big publisher, lots of journalists in the building, all running to press deadlines. And not only did it crash the system on the way out, because they weren't used to sending 2,000 emails from our Outlook in those days, it then crashed it again with all the bounce backs on the way in. And everyone was running around going, what's wrong? Why is the system down? Why can't anyone do any work? And then I realised it was me. So my friend sitting next to me said, just be quiet. Don't tell anyone that was you. No one will know. But in my naivety, I just thought, well, I've just made a mistake. That's all right. And I went took myself into the publisher's office and said, stupidly sent this email out. That was me. And he was really good about it. And I think... life went on, everyone recovered from it, but it was an interesting day at work. And I think for me, the two things that I probably learnt from it is, one, never ever be afraid to put your hand up to say you've made a mistake. So I always think that now, you know, even when people around me were saying, just don't tell anyone. It's all right. People make mistakes. And then two, I think it makes me more forgiving when other people make theirs, because I flip back to that moment and think, well, everyone makes them. As long as they learn from them, then that's okay. And actually, you know, we had a mistake last week when we launched this big campaign. Oh, no, I won't go into details, but, you know, we did send a totally blank email out. And, you know, shit happens, doesn't it? And what can you do? And as long as we can fix it and learn from it, then we have to move on. I think that's what I remember from that.
So that's a great bit of advice for anyone, really, and I think that's a lovely bit of advice for leadership. Like, think back to your mistake. I'm sure, you know, no one gets to a senior position without having made some mistakes, and I love that idea that an expert is someone who's made all of the possible mistakes in a very small niche.
Yeah.
Which is a lovely way of putting it. So what other advice do you have for people, specifically a younger audience or people who have just graduated and they want to get into the industry?
Yeah.
Apart from not sending.
Don't do that. Yeah. So I think my main piece of advice would be to do something that you're genuinely interested in, because we're going to be working for a really long time. I hate to say it. So I think to do anything well, you have to be interested in it and you have to be curious. And I think as we go on, there's going to be more flexible teams, there's going to be more cross-functional teams, jobs are going to be more fluid, technology is going to be developed. So if you're interested and curious and willing to adapt and be open-minded about things, then you're going to, I think, get on better. You know, people rarely move straight up the same ladder, and I think if you can just be interested in what you're doing and open-minded, and then you can move more easily across teams and across industries, across roles, across technology. So that curiosity, I think, helps you along the way, helps you meet new people, helps you learn new things, and that's what will set people up to be able to be more flexible and work across different teams.
So how would you suggest that people work out what they're interested in? Because there must be massive overwhelm. And say, for example, I like writing, and that is pretty broad. And if you said to someone, well, why don't you write scripts for plays, or why don't you write an article about sport or whatever?
Yeah.
It's all writing. So how do you encourage people to work out what they're genuinely interested in, as opposed to just, well, I like this because it's cool?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's taking time out to learn more about what other people do. So you don't have to go and do lots of other things, but if you do read about the industry, or if you do go for, you know, coffees with your colleagues in other teams, or to me, it's going back to the basics of inviting yourself to other team meetings and say, can I just come and sit in on that so I can learn about the world of product, or I can learn about the analytics team and what they do. We do secondments here for it can be a day a month, or it can be for a week, or it can be for 6 months. And I think just doing things like that doesn't mean you have to totally understand all those different disciplines, but I think just being aware of what else is going on around you.
That's such a great bit of advice, and it really makes me kick myself for all the places that I've worked over the years that had whole departments. I was like, I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
I don't know what does the research team do, and how many opportunities could I have just gone and sat
just
in
go
for
and
an
ask
hour
someone,
and learned, and
and people,
fantastic.
I think, rarely say no. If you really,
if you
or you just say, can I come along, and we have morning conference with the editorial team that marketing team can just turn up, and then they can see at least once, this is how the journalists prep for the morning, or going down to the print site. So things like that, I just think, just be interested. If you're going to work in publishing, know how the newspaper's printed, know how journalists work.
So let's go to the other end of the spectrum. What if you are a senior, experienced person with a lot of responsibility, maybe a huge team that report into you, or huge budget, or both?
Yeah.
I think especially people who say yes to a lot of things can really suffer from overwhelm.
Yeah.
So do you experience overwhelm? And if you do, how do you deal with it?
I do. I definitely do. I think, like you say, I've got a global team working on different time zones. I've got 2 young kids. I've got, full-on job. And life's just busy for everyone, isn't it?
What's your earliest meeting you've taken on a call?
Oh, I think for me it's not too bad. I think it would be, 7 or 8 in the morning, and then, I can just do those from home for Asia. But my US colleagues, even last week, they dial in sometimes at 4 o'clock in the morning their time.
Wow.
Yeah, which we do try not to do, but sometimes people just, it can't be helped.
As long as it's not the norm, I think that's the...
No, it's definitely not the norm.
Anyway, sorry,
and it's definitely not expected. But
I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. So overwhelm, yes, I think it depends on what is causing that. I think there's, 3 different things that I probably do. One, if it's like I've got to get a particular thing done, like a presentation to write or forecasting to do, then I just cancel all my meetings and either work from home that day, blitz through it, or find a room in this building and just hide and get it done. If it's bigger than that, then I'm a real talker. I need to talk out loud, to think my problems through sometimes. So whilst Slack's great for certain things and email's great for certain things, sometimes I just have to go and either call the team into a room or go and speak to my boss or go and chat to one of my peers and say, can I just talk these things through with you? And actually, to me, that clears my head, I think, just talking it out loud and kind of having that feedback, and then I find that helps.
So I had a lovely experience interviewing a lady called Vivian Lee, Harry's Razor. She's a digital marketing exec, one of the drums 30 under, 40 under 30 or whatever it is. And she says that they use a process called rubber ducking that I've never come across, which is where when you're stuck on a problem, you have to explain it to a rubber duck. And the idea that if you have to explain something, then you have to sort of put everything in sequence in your head. And as soon as you put something in sequence in your head, you can start to see the problem.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I don't know. I'm assuming there was a rubber duck involved somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's exactly that process, I think, that you have to go through to then get to the end result. And the other person might not say anything. But for me, sometimes I've just talked it through and I've answered it myself, but it's got it out of my head and made sense of it.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that helps me. And then, actually, when life's just a bit overwhelming, so I live next to Epping Forest, so a walk through the forest is total therapy to me.
I live next to Epping Forest. Where do you live?
Okay. I live in Woodford.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Forest Gate.
Okay. Yeah. So I've always lived there. So to me, the forest is like, I suppose, like other people live next to the sea. I've always lived next to the forest. So just being able to walk out and just walk through Epping Forest for an afternoon kind of is my go-to. And I've just started piano lessons too. So that's my at the end of a busy day, I've started to try and do like 20 minutes on the piano, which...
And how are you doing that, like YouTube lessons, or have you got a teacher?
No, I've
or
got
an
a
app
real person that comes to my house now. My son and I have share piano lessons. He has half an hour and then I have half an hour.
Amazing. And what is it, classical piano or just mega basics or jazz?
Just any pieces of like music that my son says learn that, whether it's
And
pop music.
What's your piano playing fantasy? What if you had ultimate skill? What would you play?
So it's lightning and thunder. My son wants me to play Bohemian Rhapsody. That's what he's asking me to learn next. So I suppose that's anything that he can then encourages him
really
to
tough,
sit at the
got
piano.
The whole guitar part in the middle.
Yeah, I know. I don't. We'll see.
Yeah, thanks.
Give me an easier one.
You'll be walking around Epping Forest. Yeah. So, last getting to know you question. So, what's been the best investment of your time, energy, or money in your career?
So at the moment, in this point in my career, the best investment to me of my money is in good childcare, which then enables me to have time back and make sure that my energy is spent with my kids when I'm with my kids and at work when I'm at work. And especially, I think, with a global role, there's not a lot of travel involved, and it's kind of up to me how much I travel, really. But being able to easily go and see my team in New York or Hong Kong, or have them come here and be able to spend proper time with them, knowing that I've got, my kids are properly looked after, and it doesn't matter if they're sick, they still go in. We've got reliable childcare. I think it's such an expensive thing, but to me that enables me to be at work when I'm at work without worrying about anything.
And that is related to your shiny new object.
Yes.
So your shiny new object is getting mums back into work. So that's fairly self-evident, but why did you choose that subject? And tell me a bit more about why that's important.
So, well, you asked to speak about something that you're passionate about. And then I was thinking, so it's National Inclusion Week at the moment. We're doing a lot about inclusion, especially within the FT, and it's something I think we're really good at. But I think as an industry, and there's a lot of talk about helping, mothers get back into work or parents work, and flexible working, but I still don't see that come to light enough, and I still have too many friends around me or colleagues around me that still struggle to get back into work. And I think it's such a shame. You've got all of these predominantly women, and it really is, unable to work, who have worked all their lives in really good jobs, and then all of a sudden find themselves unable to go back. And I think, it's been proven that it's not good for the economy. But just, I think it then affects their children, it affects their marriages, and I think we need to do more to enable mothers to get back into work more easily.
Can we go back one step?
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to understand and empathise what that must be like for a mum.
Yeah.
So can you help me and other listeners who haven't experienced that directly, what goes on psychologically with a mum who's like, right, the kids are in nursery now, or part-time in nursery, and I want to go back to work. Like, what are the barriers? Where are the? Is it psychological barriers at their end or at the employer end?
I think it's
the
both.
Big picture.
Yeah, I think it's both. But I think the ones at their end are easier to overcome when, you think, okay, you've had a year out or I've had 6 months out, am I going to know everything? Am I going to have forgotten it all? Which doesn't happen. But then I think that is sometimes fueled by comments about, women having baby brain and things like that. And I think, they have to... I hear that, and I think, they've had a baby, they haven't lost their brain. But then I think really a lot of it comes down to flexible working. And the most people that I know that haven't been able to go back to work is because their employer has not been flexible. Or actually, and I think within the ad industry, sometimes it's the clients aren't being flexible. So, if you're a producer at an ad agency, and your agency is saying, okay, we can work flexibly. It's not the sort of job, I think, that clients accept or the creative director accepts. They want someone there all the time. So then what happens to that person? They just have to go and do something else. Or like a friend of mine then actually took a job when her baby was 4 months old and went back because she found someone that was flexible, a smaller startup agency, and was too scared to turn that job down because she thought it might be her only chance to get back to work. So I think having the kind of flexibility to do that, but also to see that from the top down. So it's one thing to put it into a HR policy, but actually I think people need to see other people doing it and that actually to be accepted. Because I think advertising still pretty much has a culture of staying late to crack the brief. So if you're seen leaving for the school run at 4:30, it's still, I think, frowned upon, even though leaving at 4:30 means picking your kids up at 6. You're still paying for sometimes 11 hours of childcare that day, but you're still seen as leaving early and not being as committed as other people. And I think, whereas at the FT, I think I'm passionate about it because I am fortunate to work in a place where people are open about it. And my boss will say to me, I can't do that 5 o'clock call because I'm taking Martha to gymnastics today, and like actually having someone on the board saying that to you and being open about it and walking out of the office at 5:00 then encourages everyone else to do it. But if it's just a policy on a piece of paper, but you don't see people doing that and you're still the only one doing it and people look up when you leave your desk, it doesn't help. So I think it's more action as well as the policies need to be in place.
And it's strange, isn't it? We're talking about advertising, that so much of it is, or should be, cerebral work. And, a lot of those problems get solved when you're not working.
Absolutely.
I was chatting to Nathan McDonald, who's the guy who founded Wheel Social. I've stayed in touch with despite having left the business. And I was saying, like, how do you deal with having a young family? And he said, you've just got to let your subconscious mind solve problems for you. Put all the information in that it needs, and then go and walk your daughter around the park, or pick them up, or take them to dancing lessons, because your brain will still be working on it far harder than if you were sat, jumping between WhatsApp, Facebook, and the deck that you're supposed to be writing.
That's so true. Even when I feel when I'm lying down to put my 2-year-old to bed at night, 95% of the time I'm taking that time to go, what did I do today? What have I got on tomorrow? And that's my kind of planning time. And then I have to remind myself to think about her too. But I think that's really true. And with that, I think comes the acceptance of being able to work from home or work in different places. And again, I think it's getting better, but it's still not. I still hear people say, oh, she only works part-time, or, oh, she doesn't work on Fridays. And you go, well, she does work on Fridays. She works from home on Fridays. There's still this kind of unconscious bias behind it. So I think those things will make a big difference.
And so what is your view about flexible working? Are you of a mind where, you can just work from anywhere, just get the job done, which is my business's policy, unlimited holidays, and just, if you can get the job done working from wherever, brilliant. And that means you have a better work-life balance and get on with it. But that's easy for us. We're a startup.
But we're a global media brand, and that's our policy too. So we have a total flexible working policy, and exactly that. You just get the job done. But it is easier said than done. So you can't just, I suppose my point is that you can't just say it. That things then have to be put into place. So, for example, we have just hired 2 journalists in the newsroom who work across different teams to fill the days that are worked by staff who are part-time. So before, it's been you can't have a part-time journalist. That's a full-time job. Okay, well, that's not good enough. How do we enable journalists to have part-time jobs? And that's what I mean, with the ad agencies and some creative roles that have been said. That's a full-time job. Okay, turn that around. How do we make that a part-time job? And part-time doesn't have to be 2 days a week. It can be 4 days a week. But how do we enable people to work more flexibly? And with us, we do say you work from where you like and when pretty much when you like, and as long as you get the job done. So we've just moved into this new building. It's all agile working. No one's got their own desk so that we can kind of encourage people to move around and come and go as they please, and have a safe environment that's adaptable, that they can work here when they need to and somewhere else when they don't.
And so what if we were looking 12 months hence, and we were like, oh, we chatted last year about getting mums back to work, and these 3 things have happened, what would you want to see, what that aren't currently in place generally across the industry? What do you want to see change most of all?
That is a really good question. So I think I would like to see more working parents in those conversations, and when you ask people how that's going, for a positive response, not, I've had to fight for this or work even harder to prove myself. So I think sentiment is really important. I think you can judge it by that. And I think that more, like we just said, flexible working accepted around businesses, less long hours at people's desks in agencies, for example. I think we're getting better at it, but it's still far from normal.
And I'll spare you on the third one. But so often on this podcast it's about technology, and that is the shiny new object. And so thank you for sharing your thoughts about getting mums into work. I know there's a real range of people that listen to this podcast from agencies and tech providers and startups. So I think that's really important that you've laid that out on the table for. Because if everyone gets a little bit better at it, then it automatically gets better for a lot more people. But let's keep that conversation alive. And thank you for giving me some insight into how you manage a global team, how you manage overwhelm, how not to send emails in the early 2000s, and generally for accommodating me on this rather wet and wintry day in London.
Yeah.
And what is that weird sound downstairs?
I don't know. I think it's roadworks.
Classic.
Sorry.
Classic. Bear in mind we were going to be in the audio suite.
Yeah.
But there you go. There's Ollerton podcast publishing for you. Fiona, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would you want them to do that?
Oh, they can email me or look for me on Twitter. So it's fiona.spooner@ft.com, or look me up, Fiona Spooner.
And what's your Twitter handle?
Fiona Spooner.
Fiona Spooner.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks very much, Tom.